Hello, fellow travelers. Welcome to Respawn Station. My name is Sir Kandula, and today I'm joined by Nick Sivak to talk about some not-so-fun stuff. But of course, before we get to that not-so-fun stuff, which, Nick and I haven't even talked a lot about this directly, to each other, so I think this is going to be an interesting conversation just in general. And I'm looking forward to that. You can find the timestamp to get to that part down in the description if you're a little impatient. But of course, if you're not new around here, you'll know that we start every episode by asking ourselves a very important question. Nick, what are you playing, my friend?
So, I have been playing just mainly one game this week, which is a game that I was looking forward to a lot prior to 2024. And we're gonna start this episode off on a good note because this is
We need it.
It's a positive note. It's a
Yeah.
very fun game, and that's Another Crab's Treasure, which is it's a very kind of, how do I want to say this? I guess I'll just describe it as it is. It's a combination of a 3D platformer and a Souls-like, and you play as a hermit crab that gets thrust into the ocean to try to find your shell because it's been repossessed by a loan shark.
I see.
And yeah, it's very like cute and adorable. Like the art style. I was, prior to this year, I was calling it like the SpongeBob Souls-like because the art style really does kind of remind me of SpongeBob SquarePants. It's this bright colors, underwater vibe, talking fish, all this other stuff. But on the other hand, you have, this Souls-like genre, which, obviously has plenty of, different entries, and a lot of them usually revolve around dark fantasy. So,
Right.
It's not too often that we get these ones that are completely stylistically distinct from it.
Mm-hmm.
But I finished the game this morning, actually. So
nice. I was going to ask my first question.
Game.
How long did it take you total?
So my final play time, I got the 100% completion with the achievements. So
okay,
I went back and
you played on Xbox, but in our PlayStation lingo, you platinumed it.
Yes.
Yep.
So I went back and did some stuff. My final save time was 24 hours. But it realistically, if you're not doing that, it took me closer to 20.
Gotcha. Okay. So, but you're saying 5-hour cleanup?
Yeah. Because there's a couple things that I had to go and I went back and thoroughly explored some areas to try to find some bonus unlocks and all that.
Right.
But yeah, it was about 20 hours.
So, I know little about this game. I know, obviously it's a Souls-like with a crab in it, but, if we were to say it, if we were to put a label on it, I don't know if I've done it already on the podcast, but you are the Souls-like expert here. I mean, you wrote our monolithic review for Elden Ring on the website. So, how does this... I'm really curious how it compares, because obviously you said the tone is very different and stuff, and, it is, a lot of, I feel 90% of the time when you look at a Souls-like clone, they're not just trying to copy gameplay, they're also trying to match the tone and the aesthetic as well. So for a tonally different game, how does it land with the gameplay?
I enjoyed it a lot. I should set expectations up front. It is a smaller team. I'm not sure if you would necessarily call it indie or not. It's kind of in that triple I, high budget indie kind of look.
So it was only a showcase for them.
Pretty much, yeah. So yeah, it's a smaller team. It's not a huge AAA, development house that's doing this. Right. Basically. There are some rough edges here and there, but gameplay wise, it's incredibly well designed, and it takes a lot of different elements from both. I definitely want to highlight that it's a platformer and a Souls-like. So the combat has very sort of I don't want to say explicitly Sekiro kind of vibes, but there is a lot of you click in your stick, you lock onto your enemy. You guys are kind of dancing around each other. Uh, there's parrying, which
Right.
does take a little bit to get used to, but you know, parrying's a big part of it. And, it's a really intentional combat system.
Hmm.
There's plenty of times where like you need to commit to your attacks or else you're gonna get like hit and like, knocked out of
Hmm.
different attack animations and stuff. So you have to be really deliberate about when you're gonna dodge, when you're gonna swing your sword, when you're gonna parry, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
So the combat for a small team, it feels really tight.
Hmm.
The things that like I kind of have like, that show their rough edges are kind of like, and this is something that From Software is victim to as well, is a kind of a dodgy camera at times.
Right.
Like there'll be
Yeah.
times when like, you're in a really confined space and the camera's clipping behind the wall and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
those are things again that like I don't want to like make an excuse for, but like it kind of comes
Sure.
with the territory with some of these games.
Yeah.
Um, but the combat feels really balanced for the most part. There's a lot of like enemy variety, and then even in the later parts of the game, they kind of remix enemies that you've been fighting. So
Mm.
it does kind of feel pretty fresh as you're going through all the different environments.
Interesting. So you don't consider, because for me, like I think the general consensus whenever I've seen talk about a Souls game, right, is that like, oh, they repeat the bosses. That's gotta, like it's lazy or whatever. So,
Hmm.
but it works in another Crab's Treasure, or you didn't
Yeah,
mind it at the very least.
those are more so for like standard enemies. There are some bosses that like kind of get a reuse, but again, they kind of give
Oh,
them
I
new
see what you're
moves
saying.
or new equipment.
Sure,
So
sure,
like
sure.
you're not fighting the same boss. Whereas in like, you know, in Elden Ring, for instance, like you might have one of those like cat statue bosses, and then in another one you'll fight like
Sure.
two. Like there's like one instance of that happening in this game,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
for the most part,
I played a
they
game
change it
last
up.
year and I reviewed it, and so I'm not going to mention the name. You can feel free to figure it out yourself. With some amateur sleuthing. But there's a game I played last year that would kind of classify itself as a Souls-like, and I remember one of the most frustrating things about that game was that like we got you get to the end, and then to beat the final boss you have to beat three other bosses you've already beaten, just like health buffed, and so it's like,
Mhm.
I get it, dude, I've already done this. But no, I see what you're saying. I
Yeah.
see it's different for this game. Yeah.
The thing I really want to praise about the game, though, is the level design and the platforming elements.
Mm.
Because, like on the surface, pun intended, I guess. Um, it is a bit of a weird combo that you don't really see, like a 3D cartoony platformer mixed with a Souls-like combat system,
Hmm.
but it really works together really well in this instance. The levels themselves and the environments, it's such a weird thing that I'm about to like bring up, but they really do capture the Souls kind of environment that just, you look at a level you're about to start into and it looks like boundless and huge, and like there's so many things that, are catching your eye on the horizon,
Yeah.
and eventually you just kind of work your way through it
Hmm.
and you're like, oh hey, like I was all the way over there and I started there and now here I am at the end right in front of this boss fight or whatever.
Hmm.
They have like a massive sense of scale, which is really interesting. Like I posted a tweet where I was in one of the like main kind of hub towns that you go to,
Hmm.
and just like the bridge walking up to this place, like it looks like, an undersea kingdom off in the distance or whatever. And like
Right.
it was in those moments where I'm like, man, this does feel like I'm playing like Dark Souls right now, where like I
Hmm.
just like walked out of a cave and there's this massive castle
Right.
sitting in front of me. Like
Yeah.
they really nailed kind of the sense of scale, which also comes back in on itself in like a funny way because you're playing as this hermit crab, and so regular items, trash, because trash is a pretty big
Right.
component of the gameplay. Things like a giant whiskey bottle will look like massive, like so. you,
Right.
you get these kind of funny sort of it's funny set decoration, I guess I'd say, on like an environment when like you have like this big giant sand castle and there's a pair of sunglasses or a flip flop that's like being used as like a shed roof, something like that.
Right. Right. Right.
So just aesthetically, they look really awesome. But then the platforming mechanics get brought into it,
Hmm.
and it's some really solid platforming. It's not anything that really wows you for the most part, like
Sure.
until the end. At
Mm.
the end, like one of the final environments you go to is like awesome. Like I'm not gonna spoil anything about it because I do think it's one of those kind of things where it's like it's better to experience it
Experience it. Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, yeah.
But there's places in this final area or like semi-final area
Hmm.
where they have little offshoots for you to go get optional like shells. Basically a big part of the gameplay is getting these shells, which I'll talk about in a minute.
Sure.
But you can go get these like hidden secret shells, and they have like a pretty challenging platforming section that like acts as like your challenge to go get it. And like I say it's challenging because compared to everything else in the game that's like a bit more on the basic side, it
Hmm.
is challenging. Like it's not like you're not playing like Celeste or whatever where you have to restart this like multiple times, or at least I didn't.
Yeah.
But like it was some of the most fun because you have your jump, which
Hmm.
is pretty standard. You have eventually you can get a skill that gives you like a dodge roll in the air, which is kind of like an air dash, but not exactly.
Hmm.
It can still let you get a little bit of extra distance out of a jump, sort of like a Mario slash like Yoshi game. If you hold the jump button, uh, Krill is the crab you play as. He will do this little swimming animation, and it'll like hover for a little bit.
Hmm.
So you have a little bit of control where you can hover in the air, and then you also eventually get like a grappling hook.
Hmm.
And so getting all of those tools together where you're like, jumping up on this little climbable ledge, jumping backwards, grappling to another area that launches you over, and then, doing a couple
The
tight
chanting all
jumps.
that together, right?
Yeah, it gets like super satisfying. And with the scale that I mentioned of the environments, there are some levels that you're like, platforming super high up, and like, you don't have any fall damage because you're in the water, so you can just jump all the way down to like a bottom area from a really high up area.
Mm.
Just stuff like that that's like really satisfying.
Hmm.
They have a bunch of different kind of like a platformer or like a collectathon if you want to call it like that. There's a upgrade material you get from killing certain higher tier enemies and from just like little crystals that are in the environment.
Mm. Is it like
So,
the Souls equivalent?
sort of the Souls equivalent is microplastics. So
Oh, that's fucked
you,
up.
yeah, you get that from killing different enemy crabs and stuff like that. There's actually a funny little tooltip in the game that says like from birth you have microplastics in your body and there's nothing you can do about it.
Damn.
Like it's just like stuff like that. It's a very funny game
Yeah.
throughout also, which is also not typically part of a Souls like we do find things like that in specifically from software games, like people calling the turtle like a dog and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like
Yeah.
people make their own fun out of that, but it has like some really legitimate
Hmm.
funny moments and funny jokes in it. But yeah, the I wanted to talk about what did I mention before that I wanted to say? I was
About
talking about
collecting things.
combat, collecting things. Yeah, so uh yeah, you get you smash these crystals, which is also satisfying. You just walk up and hit them a couple of times, and you get some of these, power ups.
Yeah.
And basically, you use those to unlock skills on a skill tree,
Hmm.
which can, give you different abilities like that.
Now,
Air
here's the important
roll.
question: do you have to do those at specific like bonfire-esque locations, or is it anywhere in the menus, just like any time?
Leveling up is done through specific bonfires. The things that you buy with the crystal,
Uh huh.
money, there's a specific NPC that you have to go to.
Oh, I see.
Uh, but they have something that I really like about this because this game has a lot of things that Souls players I feel like complain about a lot that they've basically just included in here that make it a much more approachable and accessible kind of Souls like.
Hmm.
One thing, for instance, is when you're at one of these bonfires, they're called moon snail shells. So it's like a little shell that you get
Sure.
into. Um, they act as fast travel points, but they have a menu in. It's basically split into two menus. You have one that has every location that you can fast travel to, and then they have a second one that's important locations,
Hmm.
and that's where like, any level up NPCs or like the main town is. So you can
Interesting.
just like quickly go there if you need to,
Hmm.
you know, you
See,
like I know I need to go to the town, so I'm just going to use
it,
that
it
rather
is
than
that is a
go
very
through.
helpful feature. I know that like Lies of P has a feature where it's similar thing where if you visit one of those like shrines in that game, I forget what they're called, stargazers, I think, something like that. It has a list of all the places you can fast travel to, and then it'll have like a little face of like an NPC if there's like new things you can talk to them about or like new kind of character progression. So it's like
Hmm.
I like that because I will say I get lost if I don't know where the hell to at least like a general direction to go in.
And like it's hard in Souls likes to, remember specific locations where certain NPCs and stuff are. So like I found that just super helpful. That it's just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
if there's something that is significant to you, the player here, that you would want to come back for later, like we're just gonna throw it in this menu. So I
yeah,
really
yeah.
liked that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things that they added that I know a lot of people that play Souls games complain about are runbacks to the bosses. And pretty much at every single boss fight in the game, like I don't think that there was any that I can recall.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you die during the boss fight, it asks if you want to spawn on a moon jelly pod, which basically will put you right outside the boss arena, like every single
Ah,
time.
okay,
So,
okay.
and it also puts your your dropped microplastics or your souls
Uh huh.
like pretty much right underneath you. So you can always like you still have to be mindful enough to pick them up each time,
Right.
but like it's not really like, oh, this boss like chucked me across the arena. Now my souls are on the opposite side. I have to
Sure.
go get them like
But it
between
is
this
it.
boss.
So is it like a thing of like if you die with a micro, like if you haven't picked up your microplastics, do they get halved or they disappear or is that like?
It'll disappear if you die.
Ah, okay,
So
okay,
you definitely do have to be mindful of that.
sure.
Uh, it's not that brutal, like I would say. Like there are definitely times that I, you know, died a lot throughout this game. Like it is a Souls like, so there is still challenging combat encounters
Yeah.
throughout it. But it's not anything where I was like really beating my head against the wall. The one exception would be one of the first major bosses, but at that time I was still kind of coming to terms with the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like trying to suss out exactly how you're supposed to play the game different to like a Souls like. I was still trying to figure that out. So that one took me a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them, like once you kind of get the feeling for the groove of the combat, like it really kind of starts to click, and then it's just like, all right, now I need to learn these, tells and attacks that I need to dodge or whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, leveling up is really nice. You get a nice sense of progression there. Oh, it was the shells. That was what I wanted to bring up, because that's a really big part of this
Oh,
game that's
sure.
different from a lot of other Souls likes. And you're a hermit crab, so you pick up a bunch of different pieces of trash essentially,
Mm-hmm.
and that becomes your shell. And basically, how this works is you get like a second health bar,
Mm-hmm.
and it works kind of like a shield in that if you just hold the L1 or left bumper or whatever controller you're using, the shield button, let's just say, you'll hide inside your shell, and if you take any damage during that, it will do damage to your shell's
Shell
health bar
stuff.
and not your
Okay,
personal health bar.
gotcha.
Uh, but if you're not holding that, it can do damage to both or like just your health. So you can, at strategic points, you can hide in your shell and take damage on, the shield health bar, which would, obviously not drain your actual health bar, which kills you.
Mm-hmm.
Parrying, if you can, parrying is basically done when you release the button at
Mm-hmm.
the time of the attack. And if you can successfully pull off that, you get no damage to your shield. So basically, if you get good at the parry, you can like take no damage while you're, parrying incoming attacks, as it should
Right.
usually for a parry.
Yeah.
Um, the thing that makes these interesting is that all these different shells have different amounts of health, and they have a like a unique ability. They're
Mm.
not unique to every single shell. There are certain like categories that are like shared amongst a couple different shells
Sure.
because there's 69 shells in the game.
Nice,
Nice.
nice.
um, but yeah, there's like ones where you activate the ability and it it's called Fizz, I believe, in the game, and it makes a bunch of bubbles pop out that'll like track to an enemy that's nearby you. There's one that gives you like a launcher move that'll launch an enemy up in the air. There's ones that like there's one that was like an ice cream cone, and if you activate it, it'll act as like a healing item. So it'll give you like your red health back at the cost of some of your shield health.
Sure.
So there's some really interesting kind of special abilities that augment how you play. And there's definitely times where it's like, okay, this boss seems like they are really fast and they like to attack a lot. So I'm going to want something that has a lot of health because I'm probably going to be hiding in my shell a good bit.
Yeah.
Versus one that's like, you know, this enemy is like way far in the distance and they're shooting at me with a projectile. I'm probably going to try to get something that will allow me to dodge roll faster. Because that's another thing. They have different weights, and heavier ones make you fat roll, lighter ones give you a good dodge roll and all that. So there's a lot of customization in how you want to, you know, tackle any combat encounter. So yeah, that's I don't want to talk forever about this game, but it's
overall,
really
I mean,
well
it seems like you're hot on it.
I am. I'm probably going to be writing a review for the site. I haven't started it, but I was intending on doing that, and yeah, it did not disappoint. It was a blast.
You know, I'm gonna guess the answer is yes, but this feels like something that they could, that like, you know, you're looking forward to how they iterate on this, you know, in a second game, perhaps.
I would gladly take more. I mean, it kind of ended at like, you know, it has a definitive end and everything.
Oh, okay.
But I
never know. It's sold pretty well. You know.
I would gladly take another.
Sure. Well, I mean, that game, I will say, having listened to you talk about it has kind of gone up on my list. Before we go, Loading says, "Hi Sri, hi Nick." Hello, Loading. How's it going?
Hello.
And you know what? I'm going to add on to that pile, Nick, because the game I'm going to talk about is actually not out yet, but I got the chance to preview about an hour and a little bit of the game, and we're going to talk a little bit about it, but there is no, as far as I understand, full release date for this thing just yet, so keep that in mind as you might get a little excited about what I have to say. But I played Vampire Therapist. Now, here's the thing. You guys know I've already talked about games like, you know, visual novels and stuff in the past, but this one, I remember very distinctly getting the email for this in January, and I was like, damn, we didn't have the podcast, or this feels like something I would have mentioned on the podcast. And then so, lo and behold, a few weeks ago, they email us about a preview build of the game, which highlights kind of, you know, gives you a taste of the kind of core mechanics of the game, and to kind of lay the groundwork, right? You play as this a vampire named Samuel Walls, Samuel Walls, and he's this cowboy that was turned into a vampire that then, you know, he spends, I'm going to get the dates of this wrong, I'm terrible with numbers, but like, you know, he spends like the next 50 years of his life after becoming a vampire just like brutally murdering people. The game, you know, he's like, yeah, you know, half the like the dead towns in the Old West are because of me, you know, and then for the next 90 years, he just kind of spends it, you know, in solitude. He spends time with hippies too. It's just kind of like transcendentalists. And he kind of has a self-awakening where now he's able to kind of think about, you know, like thinking and, you know, all of just kind of like how, you know, maybe vampires, and I'll talk about this in a second. So how vampires might have like predisposed ideas of like generalized, like, oh, they think like, you know, you think like this or this or this, etc. And that's the general gist of the game. Now, the thing that really made this this game interesting for me is that the game was developed in consultation with licensed therapists, and so like it actually uses some like, you know, like real kind of like therapy questions and insinuations, I suppose. I don't really know therapist terms, but And that's what really got me interested. And this game seems to be very kind of leaning or enthusiastic about the fact that like therapy is good for you. I mean, even on the home screen for the preview build that I had, they had like something about it's called Safe in Our World, which is a video game mental health charity, which is cool. And obviously the game explicitly states like don't play the game and think, oh yeah, this is my therapy. But it's maybe kind of mainly just kind of getting you into the idea of being this vampire therapist, going through some of these things. And the thing that I found really interesting, to get into my actual opinions about the game, regarding the actual therapy stuff itself, I felt like I was learning stuff. And it was so weird because, like, you know, I'm not saying like I could go out, you know, in my 1 hour preview, I'm not going out and like becoming a therapist, but like, you know, you hear, like, now I know about these terms, like polar thinking and control fallacy, which are like things that I guess that, no, not only that, like not only can I like know the words, but like part of the game is talking to other vampires and identifying them. And there's like an pretty extensive like kind of like test almost, where like it'll say like, you know, a character will say, oh, you know, I should have bought I don't know, I should have bought Nick his birthday present or whatever. And it's like, oh no, that's, you know, that's a should statement. You want to buy Nick a birthday present. It's not like a should. So stuff like that it's like kind of interesting to think about. Now that's the core of the game. And then around that, you have all these kind of other really pretty strong supporting aspects. The game pretty explicitly, I mean, if you play any preview build of any game, it'll, on the top right, it says, or, you know, at some corner of the game, it'll usually say like, this is a preview build and not kind of reflective of the final product, something along those lines. This game on the top right has a similar note, but it's funny because like I think that I hope this is a reflection of the final stuff, because I think that what's here is really strong. It's the art style I really liked. I mean, it's just like this kind of the backgrounds look like paintings, and then the characters and the character work is more traditional. It's kind of, so I always throw around the word cel shaded a little too liberally, but I think it's like a little bit cel shaded with the character design. But it's just like really nice character, like the detail, the lighting, and it's all stylized, and it's kind of in, you know, where it feels cohesive. But at the same time, you know, it's just like, I don't know, like there's a charm to the art style that like lends itself to the characters. So the few characters that you have met so far are kind of, you know, that they all feel like different individual characters, which I really liked. Again, only played a little over an hour of this game, and I think the fact that I'm getting these kind of strong notes is a good sign. My only kind of reservation at this point, oh, actually, I mean, one thing that's probably going to be a make or break for a lot of people, this game has voice acting, full voice acting. Now, there are some lines that are kind of, you know, a little bit flubbed because they're moving things around still, clearly. So some, like, you know, there'll be like a line of dialogue that occasionally...
dialogue or whatever.
Yeah. But for the most part, like, it is fully voice acted, and it is like really, like, I really like the voice acting in this game. The main character, especially Sam, like I thought his voice was like just perfectly fit. He gave me a vampire Ted Lasso vibe. Like it was like very kind of positive, but it was like, you know, a little bit of Southern twang. He's a cowboy and a vampire, so a little bit different, but it had that kind of, you know, that wholesomeness in a way. So I really like the vocal performances overall. And just talking about sound in general, I think there is some pretty good, like a decent sound mix. Like, you know, you'll have the thing where if you're in a room where there's like a, you know, sounds downstairs, you'll kind of hear like a muffled sound. But when you go downstairs, it'll be like full volume, like you know, a music mix. So stuff like that. It's small things, but I think in a visual novel, it really goes a long way to kind of build out the world. So all said and done, I think that the package here is really promising. But what I was saying was, the only kind of reservation I have as of now is how the story develops and how long it is and how, like, what it's about. Because there seems to be this kind of overarching storyline, at least between Sam and I'm gonna say Andy, because it's like a longer name, Andromachos or something. Even Sam pronounces it wrong, I guess. But no, Andy and his girlfriend or partner Crimson, might be a spoiler, I suppose, if some people didn't know that, but nevertheless, that trio is interesting. I like what they're kind of going for, and you in the preview you also get that talk, and then also one patient. You actually get to talk to a patient called Dr. Drain, a 17th century research physician, and like a depressed vampire. He's just like, I've done nothing, and so you get to talk through this one patient and kind of go through their diagnose some of the stuff, and like, hey, you're identifying a should, or or you're doing a control fallacy, etc., and kind of help them in the session. So I don't know how the narrative progression overall is, but right now the taste that we got from just this preview, I thought that was really strong, and I'm looking forward to more. Again, I don't think there's any release date or information or anything like that on this, but once we get it, I'll be sure to share it on the podcast here. So all you got to do is stay tuned, and you'll find out more about Vampire Therapist.
Right on. If you're if I'm the Souls-like expert, you're definitely the visual novel
I am.
expert. So
that is, yeah. And it's great. It's honestly kind of nice because like, I've used to, again, I used to play visual novels all the time, and like I haven't really done that. But then recently, I don't know if there's like a resurgence of visual novels, or maybe they just like they realized, hey, this guy reviewed one visual novel, he'll probably play another. But either way, keep them coming because I'm here for it. But with that said, that actually puts us to probably the quickest of the what we're playing. If I'm not wrong, we've kind of flew through what we had to talk about because I think that we're not really playing too much at the time. I mean, I have really the only the games that I've been playing. I've played the Callisto Protocol, which people can watch on YouTube. I've been playing it live, and I did finish the podcast, by the way, really good. And I don't know if I said that. Did I finish the podcast by last time? I don't think so. I think it was just
I think you were like partway through it.
Yeah, so I have finished the podcast. It's good, and it's kind of definitely accentuated my experience with the game. So I'll report back once I've actually finished the game. And nothing. And you said you played maybe like an hour of Fallout 4 or something like that, Nick? You're not nothing.
Yeah, still dipping in there. Still haven't like fully 100% committed to it, but just like a little bit. Not even enough to really have a conversation about. It was mainly all plugging away at another crab's treasure.
Well, I mean, let's get to a little bit of taste of the juicy stuff ahead. It's time to talk about the news. Nick, just like another crab's treasure started us off on a nice positive note, the newscast will also be started off on a nice positive note because, ladies and gentlemen, the fast-paced arena shooter you've been waiting for is almost here. X-Defiant from Ubisoft drops on May 21st for the PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC via Ubisoft Connect, because that's still a thing, I think. I didn't actually know that, but it makes total sense. But for those of you who don't know, I've been waiting for X-Defiant. I played the game back sometime last year, and I enjoyed it. I was like, this is the game I've been looking for. And it kind of just disappeared. There was some rumors that like the game didn't pass internal testing or like Xbox testing or something like that. Like there was something went wrong and it got delayed. But there was a server test last month that I also played again. I had a good time, and I'm just like, please let the game come out, and it is finally coming out. I'm very excited on May 21st to dive into X-Defiant, and and I've also been playing a lot of The Division 2 recently, and it's if anything, it's getting me in the headspace for that, because you do get to play as the cleaners in X-Defiant. And speaking of, I just want to throw this in there, the Ubisoft shooters, I guess. Nick, do you know about Heartland? Tom Clancy's The Division, The Heartland. I think that's what the full name of the game is.
I remember hearing the title. I don't know if I ever watched whatever trailer they put out for it.
Yeah, so this was I'm actually looking it up on our website. Yeah.
Is
So
it mobile?
holy shit! Actually, May 6th, 2021 is when I wrote about this. And yeah, so the Division universe is expanding, and and this is the kind of the next step. Tom Clancy's The Division Heartland is a free-to-play game from Red Storm Studio set in the Division universe. Red Storm, by the way, have previously worked on the Division 1 and Division 2, and so they have experience on the Tom Clancy games. And yeah, their new game seems to be a standalone title, when just a free-to-play third-person shooter. Have no idea what happened to it. So I'm maybe it'll be like another X-Defiant thing where like all of a sudden they're like, it's out, it's coming out this month. But
yeah, we're ready to talk about it now.
But yeah, we'll see. I can't believe 2021. I wrote that article, and it's still I don't think there's anything else relevant or anything since then. Nick, I think this kind of well, hold on. Let's see. Before we jump into that. Loading says, Sri, any of you played or reviewed the game about flying to a different planet? Something like that said to be totally open world, but no one seems to be talking about after its release. Wait, sorry. So, are you talking about No Man's Sky is the one that comes to mind for me. Probably Starfield is another one, though you can't necessarily fly directly from out of a planet into a planet like No Man's Sky. And there's actually another game that I played earlier, maybe last year, called Spaceborne 2. And that game is, I believe, in early access on Steam, but it is like it is like Starfield, but it's it's Starfield, you think? Yeah, okay, then there you go. We nailed it. But yeah, Spaceborne 2 is like Starfield, but like you can actually fly out. Like you can actually just get in a spaceship and just aim at the sky and start flying out. The difference is I'm pretty sure it is a solo developer, so expect a totally different kind of level of it's a totally different scale and kind of production quality. So you have to keep that in mind. But it is really impressive, that game. And there's a game called The Bloodlines, also from a solo developer in early access. Both games to look out for. So with that said, Nick, this brings us more or less into kind of what we're talking about in this episode. And I think that the topic for this episode has been really kind of abstract. It's been ebbing and flowing about what exactly it's going to be, what we're going to call it or what we're going to talk about specifically. But ultimately, I think that that we're going to be talking about 3 different massive publishers that all had something to say this week, and in kind of a polarizing level of kind of I guess morality. We'll start first with Nick, you might know more about this than me, so do you want to step in here to talk about what Nintendo had to say?
So yeah, Nintendo hit to the Twitter feeds earlier this week.
Yeah, because things were quiet on Twitter recently, over the past week.
Yeah, and it's always an interesting situation when somebody from somebody from Nintendo gets on the corporate Twitter account, because it always reads like, somebody giving you a phone call from like the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Where they like, if it's Miyamoto announcing something about a movie, he comes up and he says, "This is Miyamoto." So this tweet starts off with, "This is Furukawa, who's the president of Nintendo," and he basically announced the Switch successor.
Yeah.
And acknowledged it, saying that they are going to be officially revealing it sometime this fiscal year, which is from April to March 2025 is this fiscal year that we're in.
Uh-huh.
So at some point they are going to be revealing that, and they also suggested that it will not be in their June Nintendo Direct, which will only be focusing on Switch games that are still coming out throughout the rest of the year. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Obviously, rumors have been rampant about Switch successor for literal years now.
I think I could be wrong, but I think the day after the Switch came out, there have been rumors about the Switch too. I could be wrong about that, but someone fact check me.
people have been clamoring for updates on this
Yes.
new hardware,
Yeah.
and they just kind of came out and were like, yes, like calm down. It's gonna
Now,
be
the thing that I find so
discussed.
interesting about this is that like they kind of they say like Switch successor, and I really
Hmm.
think that the wording of everything here, you have to be very careful, or not. Yeah, they have to be very careful about it because they know that players are going to dig into it and analyze the crap out of everything. But
Hmm.
yeah, I don't think that this is going to be for anyone that was it might have been expecting it. This is not a new console, right? You have to understand this is. If anything, I would liken this to the Wii U of as to the Wii as whatever this Switch is going to be for the Switch. It's not going to be a leap of a totally different console with like a totally different console design. At least that's not what I'm getting. I think I'm seeing spec bumps and like 4K support, if that. I don't use the Switch enough anymore to kind of maybe even have like a wish list of things that I want on it. Um, but yeah, this does not look. I love Nintendo. I've talked about that before, but I just think that the Switch has to make a significant leap for me because I find myself like it is collecting dust, and I understand that like there's a obviously it's a very strong selling console. Nintendo fans are like, just ravenous at times for that IP or for their IPs and stuff. So I know that there's players who are mainlining the Switch, right? Like it is the only thing they play on. But I also think that the power of the Switch is so withheld that it sucks to see so many games come out that just aren't coming out for the Switch. So often I'll see games that are like it's for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. There's no Switch port coming. And if it does have a Switch
Hmm.
port, it's buggy or has a lot of problems and or just kind of a
Or
lot
it's
of
through cloud streaming. Like,
yes or that. And
there's always an asterisk.
yeah, and I look, I'm a big handheld person. I mean, I'm like I said, I've been using the Steam Deck a lot, and maybe by next week I'll talk a little bit more about that in terms of what I'm using it for. But I've been using the Steam Deck a lot, and I think we need more power behind this. And I don't think that the Sony solution here is right, where the Portal, where it's just like a cloud streaming device, like it's just you stream it from not the cloud, I guess you stream it from your actual PlayStation 5. I don't think that's the solution either. Um, the thing is, more often than not, that means that it's going to be a little bit bigger, and I think that's come March 2025. I'm curious to see if that's the sacrifice that Nintendo's willing to make.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna have, like, obviously a tech and performance bump.
Yeah.
Nintendo always does something different with their consoles, though. So I'm very curious to
See,
see what they feel,
you say that, but
what
like
they've come up
also,
with.
Nintendo has like, the first of all, I another thing about this, right? They said Switch successor, not Switch 2 or something like that. So it's got to be some bullshit like the new Switch or like the
They've
new
learned. I have
Switch
to assume
LED.
that they've learned their lesson from that
They
NES
have
game.
they
It
cannot
is
have learned their
the
lesson.
worst.
Um,
It's not Switch U, and it can't be new
it,
Switch. If it's either of those two
we
things,
were talking about
that's
this a
ridiculous.
little bit before stream, and we're not going to talk about it too much now. But like Nick and I both have experience working at a game stores, and Nick, I can't speak for your experience, but I can't tell you the amount of times where people will be like, "Hey, I'm here for a new 3DS," and it's like, "Oh, sorry, we don't have new 3DSs, but we have like a new 3DS XL. Like we have." Quote new 3DS XL, not a new
The
product.
new 3DS
Yeah, and
XL.
so it's like
Yes, it is
just
so hard.
and the older the person gets, the more difficult that conversation is to have. So I
Mhm.
hope that it's not repeated for the sake of everyone that's has to talk about this thing.
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt.
What do you think
It's
it's gonna be called?
they've learned their lesson.
Give me a
If
name
they're
guess.
keeping the Switch name, the one that I've always loved is Super Switch, just
Super
because of
Switch.
its historical significance with Nintendo and Super Nintendo. But I based on the wordage, like you're saying, they're being very careful with the wordage here. I wouldn't actually be surprised if it doesn't use the Switch name. I
Really?
think that the safer bet is that it will, because the Switch is so popular and everything, and they'll have like a different naming
Yeah.
convention for it. But I would not be surprised if this is just like a new Nintendo blank kind of
Really? Wow.
name. Yeah.
I'm going to say Switch Pro. I think it's going to be a Switch Pro, and I hope it is.
I hope it's not that, because that's kind of boring.
Oh,
But
I mean, I hope it is versus new Switch or
yes,
new
if they're
Switch
going to go with Switch
or new
something,
Switch
yes,
XL, or it's just a bigger screen,
yes.
whatever it is. But nevertheless, that's all there is. But there will be a June Nintendo Direct to look forward to without the hardware information, as we just said. So,
Yeah, it's a bit of a early heads up on that direct. Usually they're like a
they
couple days
wanted
out
to get
to say
ahead of
they're
it because I
having
mean
one.
it's time. The time is coming. The time is coming for the next release.
I mean,
Um,
even real quick before we transition
yeah,
here,
yeah.
your point about Nintendo fans digging into everything. I saw it earlier this week because the Nintendo New York, the store in New York, their Twitter account tweeted that their game wall was going under renovations for a couple days, and people were like blowing up in the replies, being like, "Oh,
This
that's
is
pretty
it.
sus, isn't it?" Like, it's like, I wonder if they saw that and they're like, "Okay, can you just say something, please?" Like, it's getting ridiculous.
Well, speaking of getting ridiculous, things got quite a little bit ridiculous for Helldivers 2. For those of you who haven't been following this developing topic, essentially, Helldivers 2, came out to rave reviews, and it was almost like the Baldur's Gate 3 effect of me. Like for me, like as someone who, doesn't play either games. Like I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3, I haven't played Helldivers 2. They're just not the games that I typically maybe gravitate towards. Though I if there was, Helldivers 2 is definitely one that the first one I would check out. But so Helldivers 2 came out and did really, really well. It became PlayStation's seventh best-selling game of all time. And to clarify that, they did that specifically because it was on PC. Like I mean, just the fact that it was on PC kind of really lent it those extra sales that it wouldn't have been able to reach on just on PlayStation.
Yeah, I think it's majority PC. I thought I saw like a tweet or a headline or something that suggested if it wasn't on PC, then it wouldn't have cracked like the top 20 or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like, it's pretty
So
crazy.
it was this kind of for all intents and purposes, it was this golden goose, a game that I think many people were going into like, oh, this is going to be in the end of the year game of the year talks. Then there's an update that comes out that says, hey, Sony will be, or PlayStation will require you to log in to your PlayStation account or make a new PlayStation account if you don't have one in order to play Helldivers 2. And they clarified that like this was originally something they meant like they were going to do right at the start when the game launched, but because they were still, I guess, testing things out or seeing the logistics of everything, they delayed that integration of the PlayStation account a little bit further. And to their credit, I do think that they also say that it's part of like the security and or balancing or something like that. And at a glance, it could be pretty harmless to think, oh, make a PlayStation account. What's the big deal? But also, I think the problem was that there's twofold. One, PlayStation's been hacked quite a few times, so people a little bit hesitant to
Suspicious.
give
Yeah.
them all their information. And then two, it's that some countries cannot make, in some countries you cannot make a PlayStation account. You cannot play the game, which meant that people who played the game, who paid for the game, wouldn't be able to play it. This was a huge issue. It happened. It was kind of like gestating over the weekend, and it was one of those weird things where I was just kind of watching this whole thing happen, and I was like, really, like, you're not going to do anything about this? And they did. It's just they had to wait for the weekend to end. But by then, there was about, I think it was like, I don't remember the exact number, but it was like 200 to 300,000 reviews on Steam that were all negative about this issue. And it was actually so bad that the reviews went to the first game, and they started review bombing the first game. Now, I don't think review bombs, just generally, I don't think review bombs are that, I don't know. Do you have an opinion on review bombs, Nick? Personally, I'm against them, but I could see there's like instances where I could see them kind of working, but by and large, I think that they're more of a negative than a positive, I think.
Yeah, like it depends on where you're looking at them from. Like the concept of it, you know, it's like if you're using a review as like a judge of like quality of a game or
Right.
whatever, I think that system can be abused in cases and has been abused in many
Yes.
cases
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
review bombing. This, however, is a situation where like, hey, sometimes
Yeah.
it works
It
and
works.
makes things change. So
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, like I think it's on a case to case basis, but by and large, like I think it gets abused more than it actually equates into
I absolutely
real
agree. I mean,
change.
I covered the if that Elden Ring review was your kind of magnum opus, I think mine would probably be this gigantic article I wrote about The Last of Us Part 2, and not even about the game itself to a degree, but it was about like just the everything happening around that time, and I just had a lot of fun, or maybe not so much fun writing that article, but yeah, I think review bombings are pretty stupid. But I think that they like, because look, we're talking about, like, if we're talking about net positive or net negative, right? I think that is a net negative. I think they have done far more harm than good. I can understand how people might look at something like this and be like, "We did it, we won," but also like, I don't know. There's a civil way to have a conversation with developers that's not threatening them to make some sort of a change or review bombing. And I guess we'll have to find that out. But the controversy is still, or not the controversy, but like there's the talk about this game is still kind of going on. The one good thing is that on Monday, Sony reversed the requirement to log in, though they did. Though I think it was PlayStation account did clarify that the PC release of Ghosts of Tsushima will require a PlayStation login if you are playing the online mode. So if you're playing single player, you're fine. It's just if you want to play the multiplayer of Ghosts of Tsushima, you will need to log in. But there's also, it seems to be, again, I'm not deeply embedded in this community. I would recommend listening to I'm sure there's a podcast that's exclusively to Helldivers 2. But I believe that the community manager for Helldivers 2 just got fired because they were kind of talking about this over the weekend before an official statement was given. I'm not going to go any further than that just because I don't want to put anyone on blast without backing it up. So check that out if you want to find out more about Helldivers 2, but of course that's not what we're going to talk about. There's a few others.
Yeah, the real quick, sorry, I just wanted to throw one last thing in there, and it's basically getting to this controversial like element of this episode that we're having here.
Yeah.
But it's like with Sony, they came out and said that they were reversing the situation, and this was something that I think I either told you or I told one of my other friends, where I was like, we were talking about it over, I think it was my other friend that I was talking to. We were talking over the weekend about it, and I was like, yeah, before Sony puts a "we hear you and we're listening" out, like because of all the, bad reviews and it being pulled from all these countries. And then here they are on Monday putting up a picture. We're listening and still figuring out how to best, approach the PC audience. It's like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, seriously?
Yeah.
Like it's gotten to the point with some of these companies where they just throw this like lip service post up, and it's just like, that's supposed to be like, yeah, we screwed up. Sorry. You don't have to have our accounts now. It's like, yeah, no shit. Like,
and that does bring us to frustration. Which I think ultimately is the bottom line of this whole episode, is this growing frustration in our industry, and I think I don't think it's quite at a fever pitch right now, but it's certainly getting up there. But here's the thing: we've talked about it briefly on the podcast before, but for the fact that we're not even 10 episodes into this and that we have to talk about this multiple times, I think is a terrifying fucking sign of our times. But layoffs, or just studios closing, this has become so goddamn frequent in this industry, where I feel like every week, you wake up and there's someone who's like, yep, this 50% of this team's laid off, or this studio's closed down. And just last episode, we talked about how, the developer Roll7 was closed, and right after Nick had played Rollerdrome, and how that sucks, and especially because that was done by Take-Two, who, as I very emphatically and loudly said, how the fuck are you gonna do that when you got $1 billion coming your way in a year, dude? Regardless of that, speaking and I guess keeping on the number of billions. After $69 billion that Microsoft has paid to acquire Bethesda and Activision and Activision, and then it was Activision and Blizzard, and then what was it for Bethesda? It was ZeniMax. $7 billion for ZeniMax, and we have a total of roughly like $80 billion, right? That Microsoft has dumped into the Xbox portfolio of developing this roster. And I have to imagine that this week has been a little rough for people who maybe are really intense on the console war thing, and they're like, this is my Xbox, this is my console. But honestly, it doesn't matter if you're here for a PlayStation side or Xbox side. This sucks for gaming, because you have, first of all, the news, if you have not heard, Xbox has closed Tango Gameworks, Arkane Austin, Alpha Dog Games, and Roundhouse Studios. And these are all studios that they absorbed during the ZeniMax Online Studios acquisition. And for those of you who don't know, Tango Gameworks are the teams behind Evil Within and Evil Within 2, and most recently Hi-Fi Rush, a game that Nick and I have been very vocal about how much we liked. Arkane Austin, who've just crossed their 1 year, I believe, for the release of Redfall, and we'll talk about that in just a second as well. Alpha Dog Games, I believe, are mostly mobile games, right? I could be wrong.
Yeah, they made Mighty Doom, which is
yes. Yes. And then the last one is Roundhouse Studios, who they have made
They were kind of like a support studio.
Oh,
like
okay.
Out,
yes.
A lot of Bethesda titles out the door.
Yes, I know. Yes. So that's the gist, right? Those 4 studios have been closed, and to
Basically,
anyone,
I want to throw a clarification in there. Roundhouse is being absorbed by ZeniMax Online, so like those employees are going to go work on Elder Scrolls Online. The other 3 are like done and dusted,
yeah,
doors locked.
I definitely
closed.
said that incorrectly in my introduction. Yes. They all 4 studios were acquired by Microsoft as part of the ZeniMax group acquisition. But yes, Roundhouse Studios specifically are kind of just being tacked on to ZeniMax Online as a support studio. Yeah. Now, some people might be like, "Oh, so what? What's the big deal?" Well, first of all, these are the livelihoods of hundreds of people that we're talking about that have just gone out the window. Not gone out the window, but are now on thin ice, of now people have to go, okay, where am I going to find this next job? How am I going to, there's a lot of really shitty questions you have to ask yourself when you don't have a job, especially when it's a sudden, now I don't have a job, all of a sudden. And Nick, man, I feel like my head's gonna explode just from trying to tackle this. What direction do you want to approach this in? Because I got several, and I none of them are pleasant for this conversation. So,
yeah, let's just start it from a very broad umbrella, I guess.
Sure.
Why did this happen? Because there's a lot of people that are going to offer their, armchair kind of Twitter take, whatnot,
Yes.
and be like, "Oh, it's because Redfall flopped." They closed
Yeah.
it because Redfall flopped, and it's like, okay, well then, what was the excuse with Tango Gameworks? They just shipped one of their highest reviewed Xbox games in the last several years that everybody loved. Maybe it didn't perform well, but then this gets to another theme that we're going to get into, which that directly contradicts things that Xbox was telling us. So yeah, basically, like I have the email pulled up that was leaked. If you want me to go through some of this, because I think we can take
Yeah. No.
certain paragraphs and break off from that.
Yeah. Let's go for it. Let's go for it.
Yeah, so basically, the head of Xbox Studios, Matt Booty,
Yep.
basically emailed staff the other day, and this email naturally was going to leak.
And I think that the part of the reason why, generally, to speak to like this just the presence of this email in general, I think after this news came out, there was a lot of vocal pushback from just all Bethesda teams, like every team, pretty much like. From what I was seeing, like almost every kind of team that was acquired by Microsoft during that big acquisition, they're all like, "What the fuck? Like, what the fuck just happened?" And to, I guess before Nick kind of jumps into it, these teams didn't really get a warning. Like,
yeah, it definitely seems like it came out of nowhere.
Another one like that I was gonna briefly touch on. Again, it's so fucking annoying to talk about this because it's like I hate that there's examples of this, multiple examples of this that I could pull out so fast. But Keoken, I don't know how Keoken, who are the developers behind Delivers Mars, they actually just had to let go of, I think, all their staff or most of their staff, and they're now currently looking for kind of essentially like ways to fund their next game. And I believe they went to like GDC for looking for investors as well. I just don't think anything happened. So there's part of their statement that they released earlier this week was, "Hey, we're letting go of our team. It's a really shitty and tough position to be in, but we're doing it so that our teams." Actually, here I'll read that real quick. So it says, "Heartbroken, we've had to lay off our team at, again, Keoken. I don't know how to say that, because of nothing substantial materializing directly after our visit to GDC. We're unfortunately exhausted. We've unfortunately exhausted all of our possible options for publishing, work for hire, and co-development." And so they also say, feel free to reach out to them if you are if you're looking for programming, tech, art, porting, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you can reach out to them and hopefully hire some of those people. But that team, gave them a heads up. The reason why they did that was so that the people that are impacted aren't held out until the last day, and then all of a sudden let go. Like they didn't want to. They wanted to get ahead of it, essentially, right? That was what was happening with that. Here, some of these teams, again, there's been a lot of leaks, and I think usually leaks of like in this regard in the gaming industry are often an answer to like frustration. When like the developers are in some way frustrated, they're gonna say something to someone. 9 out of 10 times, it's apparently Jason Schreier, but could be someone else as well. But there was like leaked screenshots of like Redfall builds that were like being worked on the day that the news came out. And the Arkane Austin was actually working on the offline update for Redfall still when this happened. So this really came out of nowhere. But go ahead, Nick. With that said, let's talk about this email.
Yeah, so basically, like I'll just read it paragraph by paragraph, and if we want to talk about anything specific, we can.
Sure.
So it opens up, again, this was from head of Xbox Game Studios, Matt Booty. Today, I'm sharing changes we are making to our Bethesda and ZeniMax teams. These changes are grounded in prioritizing high impact titles and further investing in Bethesda's portfolio of blockbuster games and beloved worlds which you have nurtured over many decades. Um, right off the bat, and something that a
What?
lot of people have been talking
Yeah.
about is prioritizing high impact titles,
Yeah.
which is, again, not something that's unique to Xbox. Many of the big AAA companies are doing this. They're just, shying away from,
Live service.
well,
You're talking about
you
that?
know,
It's like, I mean,
shying away from newer, riskier projects
sure.
versus backing things with established,
Well,
bases and everything.
see, when I hear that though, for me, my mind goes to like more live service games because like I don't know, something about
Mhm.
the wording of that really felt like it. But no, um, I agree. I think that part of this. Actually, no. We'll keep going. We'll keep going. There's definitely going to be a lot of breaks that we'll have to take. But go ahead.
Yeah. Uh, to double down on these franchises and invest to build new ones requires us to look across the business to identify the opportunities that are best positioned for success. The reprioritization of titles and resources means a few teams will be realigned to others and that some of our colleagues will be leaving us, which is the first bit that, is really annoying to read because it's like
What a
you're
corporate way to say that.
yeah, you're firing and letting a bunch of people off, and you're suggesting that it's they're leaving us. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
And
yeah, that
yeah, no, a lot of this, be warned, is going to be corporate jargon, and it's I don't know, something about some of that stuff leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
it's disingenuous, and I think that's going
Yeah.
to be a running theme that we're going to touch on multiple times. But yeah, it just reads as being like
Yep.
completely disingenuous and completely uncompassionate.
Uh huh. Yeah.
So here are the changes going into effect. Arkane Austin, the studio will close with some members of the team joining other studios to work on projects across Bethesda. Arkane Austin has a history of making impactful and innovative games, and it is a pedigree that everyone should be proud of. Redfall's previous update will be its last as we end all development on the game. The game and its servers will remain online for players to enjoy, and we will provide make good offers for players who purchase the Hero DLC.
Make good offers, by the way, which are currently still being worked on. I guess that goes to show how fast this was. Pretty much all the teams that have been impacted by this have released a generic JPEG that is, a black box with a white or white border on it, and it just says like, "Hey, well, this is happening now." And
Mhm.
the one of the things that they did for Redfall was that you could go to this link and you could. If you did pay for the high-end version of the game, the Hero Edition, I think was what you said, or did they say that the Hero Edition? Is that what they said? I forget.
Hero DLC.
Okay, so because that's not coming, there's some sort of way to get the money back. But if you go to that website, it just says, "Hey, come back later because we'll figure out how to do this. We haven't figured it out yet." Is what it is roughly what it equates to.
Yeah, nothing like firing a bunch of people and saying you should be proud of the work you did for us. Like
Yeah, right.
that's just another one of those things that, kind of twist the knife. It's just like what do
Yeah,
you
and
mean?
here's the thing,
Like
right?
who are you talking to, Matt?
Look,
Like
and fuck it, dude. Gloves are off. There's no one's fucking safe here. Then you have people like Eve. I can't even pronounce his name from Ubisoft, who's saying stupid shit like, "Oh, it's balls in your court, guys. Go make the games. Go deliver the games on time." So
very
what?
similar energy.
So what? They fucking deliver the games, and they get shut down anyway. That's what it means. Go ahead. I digress.
Yeah.
I'll keep going this fucking soapbox plenty of times.
Yeah, very very similar vibe to that where it's just like, "Oh yeah, like you guys should be so proud. Sorry that we're firing you." It's like it really, this entire email is constructed fully knowing that it's going to leak because it sounds like he's talking to
To
consumers and
consumers,
not
yeah,
people that he's
yeah.
that they're firing. Uh, Alpha Dog Studios. This studio will also close. We appreciate the team's creativity in bringing Doom to new players. Mighty Doom will be sunset on August 7th, and we will be turning off the ability for players to make any purchases in the game. Tango Gameworks. Tango Gameworks will also close. We are thankful for their contributions to Bethesda and players around the world. Hi-Fi Rush will continue to be available to players on the platforms it is today. Now, I need to stop here, Sri.
Also,
because obviously,
what?
Oh, go ahead.
What a low fucking bar. That like, oh yeah, the games will be playable. By the way, guys, that's
Right.
what we're here to like. I'm happy to say that the games aren't going away, but the developers who made them are.
We're still gonna make money on them, but yeah, have fun getting a new job.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one, this is the one based on like everything that I've seen online, all the discussion about this thing, that really seems to make no sense. Based on prior things Xbox has said, based on you know quality bar, obviously that wasn't a factor because the Evil Within, like people those are successful horror games. Ghostwire Tokyo maybe didn't light the world on fire, but it still had a dedicated fan base, and it's still reviewed like fairly well. Hi-Fi Rush obviously was one of their probably highest performing critical games that they've released. But even from the business perspective, I mean, how long has Xbox and like Phil Spencer even been coming out in articles and on stage even and being like, we want to increase our presence in Japan.
Yeah.
We want to secure these relationships and bring more Japanese talent on board and provide more of those kind of experiences for Xbox players. So you go and close and fire your like one first party Japanese studio? Like
Yeah.
What does that mean? And even to go back to the Hi-Fi Rush example specifically, you have people, because it was a whole big thing a couple months ago that was like, was Hi-Fi Rush a success or not? And they came out and said that it was a success in their eyes in every metric. So it's like, so what was the reason that they're getting canned? I have a little bit more later on that. But
so here's the thing. Oh, first of all, I apologize for the audio. Well, the audio listeners, because there's an ad. I was opening up an article, an ad played. So, I apologize for that quick. I think it was like a woman saying something. But anyway, the reason why I was pulling up this article though. Let's go back. Let's spin the wheel back, Nick, to June 30th, 2021. This is actually a Game Informer article that I've pulled up, but they are quoting an IGN article. So this is like reportingception here. But nevertheless, this is an article called Microsoft's Phil Spencer says studio acquisitions are a good thing. Now, in this, he says, quote, "It doesn't mean every team has to end up selling their studio, but I think it's a natural and healthy part of our industry that certain teams will start a studio. Many of them will fail. We know some small businesses fail, whether it's video games or anything else. But those that make it through and at such kind of risk-filled journey for them to get to the point to create real value. I'm always going to congratulate when teams get to the point when they realize that value through acquisition or massive independent success. If it's that path, they also start to go." That sentence gave me Jesus Christ. Either way, Phil Spencer here, as the title might, I think suggest that it's like very much like, hey, everything's good with acquisitions. He is being, to his credit, a little bit more of like, find the right balance. Every team has a different balance. But also, really, are we going to talk about how it's a natural and healthy part of our industry when, these studios that are making games that are critically acclaimed, darlings, are coming to just be canceled. Like no matter, like I said, last episode, we talked about a game a BAFTA award-winning game studio. The Hi-Fi Rush is the Game Awards winning studio, right? Like award-winning studios are getting canned, and like, how is that a natural and healthy part of the industry? I'm just, I struggle to understand that logic.
Yeah.
And also,
the thing that makes me think about that is that like it has to and again, this is gonna sound like kind of obvious, but like it has to be money, and they're just not saying it's money because like there's no reason why you would say, oh
Yes.
yeah, this is healthy
So,
and all this other stuff. Like it just
I
has
don't.
to
I don't
be
want to
that.
keep quoting other things if there's more to read, but there is other things to quote. If you, I don't know how you wanted to go about this. This is a very chaotic conversation. So, do you want to finish up what you had, or do you want me to?
I mean, we have a good bit to go through still.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So I'll say this fast. Jason Schreier, who obviously I just mentioned, has been kind of at the forefront of this. I think he actually was the person that broke the news on Monday morning. But he wrote an article, or he published an article on Bloomberg earlier today.
Here, I actually want to get to that after the email.
Oh, okay. Perfect. All right, cool.
I have that one pulled up too.
Sweet.
Chaotic, like you said.
Oh, one sec. Regarding what Nick said about wanting to hire Japanese talent but firing their own Japanese acquisition, here's how it is the vision, etc., is said to be highest echelon. I don't understand that, but I'll let you clarify, and then we'll get back to it. But listeners, feel free to tune in live, and you can also be part of the conversation.
So yeah, we'll continue here with the email.
Yes.
Roundhouse Games, the team at Roundhouse Games will be joining ZeniMax Online Studios, which people have pointed out that is not the studio's title. It is Roundhouse Studios.
Yes.
Misnamed in the email.
Yeah.
Roundhouse has played a key role in many of our recent game launches, and bringing them into ZeniMax Online Studios to work on The Elder Scrolls Online will mean that we can do even more to grow the world that millions of players call home. Get another weird kind of you're not talking to your employees kind of line there. With this consolidation of our Bethesda studio teams, so that we can invest more deeply in our portfolio of games and new IP, a small number of roles across select Bethesda publishing and corporate teams will also be eliminated.
Wait, repeat that again, because I think that's a key thing to touch on.
So that we can invest more deeply in our portfolio of games and new IP. A small number of roles across select Bethesda publishing and corporate teams will also be eliminated.
So
this is a contradiction of this email.
Yes.
Already. Like
that. Yeah. There's so much there. So first of all, the start of that is saying like investing in projects, right? So
high impact, high priority titles.
Yeah.
i.e. well established IP.
I believe that Arkane was actually pitching another Dishonored or something like that. We're in the process of pitching another Dishonored game, or something that kind of maybe was like more in their roots of what Arkane's kind of used to making before the shutdown. Which again, what are we talking about here? And then also, like, this feels like. To me, a mindset switch for Xbox, and I don't want to say that I'm like reading the tea leaves wrong, or maybe even like being too over analytical about it, but also like that's the point I'm at here, guys. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. I think we talked about this. Nick, what episode was it? Episode 3 or 4 that we talked about like Xbox. 3. It was episode 4, The Uncertain Future of Xbox. That's what the episode's called. Listen to it. It was only an hour and a half, which we'll be crossing soon anyway. But we kind of talked about it there, about how Xbox is moving the way they look at their games, right? And I think this is the sign of them not being a publisher like Sony is, where they're essentially curating for a system, right? Like that's what Sony does. That's what Nintendo does. They're curating games for a specific system. Xbox is moving away from that. That's what they've done in the past. But here, I think they're more just kind of moving in the direction of like someone like a Take-Two, where they're just almost like putting on the publisher role. They're looking for IP, the nice juicy IP that they can get into, and then anything else, they're just kind of tossing by the wayside, I think. And we'll get into this again, but I think the bottom line is really big part here. And again, we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, the thing that just gets me is that, saying that it's about new IP is just it's just straight up a lie.
It's a lie. Yeah.
Like you can't, like, Tango Gameworks and Arkane, look at their output for both of them. They were the studios that were doing the new IPs. They were the ones that were like making the new innovative ideas. And so, like, if you're gonna say, like, yes, we're letting these people go so that way we can make new IPs, it's like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like it straight up just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and this is again my God, dude. I didn't realize that digging through corporate bullshit would be so frustrating. So
yeah,
here's the thing: you say that, but also, what the Call of Duty. Call of Duty is just that's all you did. That's all it is. I'm sorry, I just yelled. I definitely picked the microphone when I just said that. But look, that's all it is, right? Call of Duty is all just like, oh, it's an IP. That's all it is. Half of the stuff you're buying these companies for are pre-existing IP that you're betting on. What do you mean new IP when? Yeah, like Nick was just saying, like you just let go of the two teams that are making the new IP in a pool of Call of Duty 15s and Diablo. I'm not gonna say Diablo 5s, but Diablo 5s, or half baked Overwatches, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Yeah, what this means for Bethesda is Fallout and Elder Scrolls.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah.
I think as much will be made even more clear by the end of the email.
Yeah, go ahead.
Those whose roles will be impacted will be notified today, and we ask that you please treat your departing colleagues with respect and compassion, unlike we are. That's not in there.
I was gonna,
that's me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, who's out here? Oh, my coworkers, fuck you, Tom. You deserve the.
You got laid off. Like,
yeah. What? Yes, go ahead.
We will provide our full support to those who are impacted in today's notifications and through their transitions, including severance benefits informed by local laws. These changes are not a reflection of the creativity and skill of the talented individuals at these teams or the risks they took to try new things. I acknowledge that these changes are also disruptive to the various support teams across ZeniMax and Bethesda that bring our games to market. We are making these tough decisions to create capacity to increase investment in other parts of our portfolio and focus on our priority games. So again, contradicting that new IP statement again, like not even 2 paragraphs later.
Dude, what are they saying, man? Like, it's like
Bethesda remains one of the key pillars of Xbox with a strong portfolio of amazing games and thriving communities. We will look to the future. As we look to the future, there is an impressive lineup of games on the horizon. In 2024 alone, we have Starfield Shattered Space, Fallout 76 Skyline Valley, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and The Elder Scrolls Online's Golden Road.
Nick, can you please name a new IP in among those?
Yeah, there is none.
Oh, shit, okay.
As we align our plans and resources to best set ourselves up for success in this complex and changing industry, our teams across Arkane Lyon, Bethesda Game Studios, id Software, Machine Games, ZeniMax Online Studios, and the Bethesda Publishing and corporate teams will be well positioned to build new IP. There's that new IP again. Yeah, all the new IP with, Starfield, Fallout, Elder Scrolls, and Indiana Jones.
Yep.
Explore new game concepts like Tango and Arkane were doing. I also just added that in. That is not in the email. And expand on our existing franchises, Matt. So that's the end of the email.
Yeah.
And
look,
yeah, that's the paragraph.
I don't necessarily have anything. I should also say this, right? I don't have anything against Matt Booty or Phil Spencer. And look, you have to understand that these people are also human. There's probably a ton of pressure above them as well, kind of saying, hey, like I saw this thing and I'm not gonna go hunt for it because it's an offhanded thing, but essentially like something about like Satya Nadella, I think that's his name, from like Microsoft, said that he gave Redfall like a year to kind of, get back on track type of thing, and I guess they weren't on track or whatever. Sure, if that is true, if that is what happened, sure, I can kind of get it. But also, right now, this is not the time to feel sympathy for the executives that are pulling out with millions, right? I also don't think this is the time to send death threats. I don't think any time is the right time to send death threats. But we also, we can't stop every time we're going to talk about this topic and be like, it's not the executive's fault. Just don't be an idiot, okay? If you're listening and you're like, I got to go defend these developers, don't be an idiot and do something stupid, but also understand, have a conversation about this stuff, and without being like, but the developers are all the high end, the executives are also human beings. I get it. We're all human beings. Go ahead. Yeah, I had to get that in
this final paragraph is the one that I take the most issue with, though, because this was when I was reading it. I was just like, it straight up reads like an advertisement or something that they would have.
Yeah, a little plug,
in a showcase. It's yeah, I'm pretty sure your teams know what games you have coming out. Yeah, this is one that just the entire structure of this email completely falls away, and it's yeah, obviously somebody's going to leak this out, and you're just throwing in weird references to your upcoming games. It's full of contradictions. It's full of really annoying language.
It makes no sense to have an internal address and then hey guys, I have sad news. We're letting go of a bunch of people, but make sure you buy the games. We're releasing 4 of them this year.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do that.
So yeah, as you mentioned before, the story is ever changing, and Jason Schreier threw out some additional information today. This is from Bloomberg. Microsoft's Xbox is planning more cuts after studio closings.
Yeah, and this is summaries from a town hall that happened with ZeniMax staff earlier today morning. Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Let's dive into this, because there's some juicy stuff here too that you're gonna get mad about. So let's get into it.
Yeah, so unlike the email, I'll just pull out some stuff that we're going to talk about here.
You can check it out on Bloomberg.com though.
Yeah, so basically, Matt, praised Hi-Fi Rush, specifically talking about Tango Gameworks, but did not specify why the company had shut down the development studio behind it, according to 3 people who were in attendance. Speaking about the closures more broadly, Booty said that the company's studios have been spread too thin, like peanut butter on bread.
That's a quote, by the way. That's a direct quote. I want to emphasize. Peanut butter on bread is a direct quote.
And that leaders across the division had felt understaffed. They decided to close these studios to free up resources elsewhere, he said. Booty added that the shutdown of subsidiary Arkane Austin, the longtime developer of the games such as Prey, was not connected to the performance of the new multiplayer game Redfall, a critical and commercial flop. Before its closure, Arkane had been looking to return to its roots by pitching a new single-player immersive sim game, such as a new entry in the Dishonored series, according to people familiar. Jill Braff, head of ZeniMax Studios, said in the town hall that she had hoped that the reorganization would allow the division, which also develops Fallout and Doom, to put more focus on fewer projects. It's hard to support 9 studios all across the world with a lean central team with an ever-growing plate of things to do, she said, according to the audio of the meeting.
Hold on. Let's talk about this for a second. You know how you avoid that, Nick?
Don't buy all the studios?
Yeah, don't fucking acquire studios. If you're like, 9 studios is becoming a little too much, maybe don't spend $80 billion buying new studios, guys. That's a thought.
Yeah, this part just kind of pisses me off.
That was the part I was going to quote earlier, because that part really just, I was like, what? How are you, how are you getting out here saying this with a straight face? I mean,
yeah, what did these people expect? It's, the way, because I was thinking about this earlier, I was trying to think of, how I was going to, phrase these topics that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
And, it was making me think where I was just sitting there and I was like, this sounds like, to me, having this context of how they are talking about the decision to close some of these studios, this sounds like to me that and again, this might be obvious to certain people.
Yeah.
It wasn't obvious to me during, at the time, but it seems like, they just make these acquisitions because they want a couple things, and then they just waited until it kind of quieted down, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna cut off the stuff that we didn't want in the acquisition.
And
Like, to me, like, I say this as a Bethesda Game Studios fan, and like I'm not trying to, like, suggest all of their Bethesda stuff isn't to the same caliber. Again, many of the games that they release are above stuff that Bethesda puts out.
Yeah.
But like, it feels like, looking back on that acquisition specifically, the ZeniMax one, that it was like they wanted Fallout and Elder Scrolls, and like everything else was kind of like, oh, we kind of had to buy that. Like, I could see them also, like, they wanted the tech from id, because id Tech is a very illustrious technology and everything, and so like I definitely see like parts of that. But it's like, I feel like things like Arkane, things like Machine Games, they're safe for now. But like,
and
it just makes you think back, and it's just like, what was the goal here?
Then you think about, right, like so you're saying you have to invest all this money into these new games, but Nick, I don't know if you know this, and you might, because we're hosting a gaming podcast, but there's a chance that our listeners might not know that Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, an Xbox exclusive big release, is coming out in 2 weeks. Who's promoting this? How does this not come out that it's coming out in 2 weeks? There was a tweet earlier today saying Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, May 21st.
Hilarious. They couldn't put anything else. And like all the replies were like dogging on them hard too, which is like, yeah, it's.
So like, where's that money going that you've seemingly saved from these studios? Well, here's another thing from the article that Nick was quoting. So Jason Schreier writes that Matt Piscatella, executive director of analysis firm Circana, said that monthly non-mobile video game subscription spending in the U.S. has been flat to low single-digit growth since Game Pass is. Wait, he's talking about Game Pass?
This is subscriptions industry-wide.
Industry-wide, okay.
So whatever gets tracked, because the stuff that Circana gets, sometimes certain publishers and companies don't report.
So he does say, in our data, Game Pass spending really had its big growth period since in late 2019 through early 2021, and has since settled. Purchasing games and add-on content, as well as free-to-play models, are vastly preferred method of getting video games by U.S. Consumers, at least for now. And I think this is a big point to touch on as well, because again, we kind of talked about some of this stuff in episode 4 about just kind of Xbox in general, but I think that they've been really putting a lot of that, a lot of their effort into Xbox Game Pass, and I have sung Xbox Game Pass praises. I still think it's one of the best values in gaming currently, in terms of how much you're getting for how little investment. But that being said, right, the bottom line that I was going to say here, I mentioned it earlier, was that the bottom line is what matters for a lot of these executives. The bottom line is a number, and that number dictates more or less everything. And I think for these executives, and I think in the actually, I think is it this? There's been a lot of news floating around about this stuff, but essentially it was like I don't know if you saw this, Nick, but it was about how they were in conversation. There's been a lot of conversation, in the kind of the executives at Xbox about bringing Call of Duty to Game Pass, and how they do that if they bring in the new Call of Duty to it, which again feels a little weird. Why that's in contention when I thought that was the whole point of the Game Pass, was like, hey, everything that Xbox publishes, you can get it here day one. Like that's the pitch, that's the marketing brand. But when that service, which did do really well, as Matt had said here, did do really well in 2019 to 2021, and I can probably attest to that. That was like the time where everyone was like really clamoring for Game Pass, I think, at the time, and I think COVID and the pandemic had a lot to do with that as well. Just like everyone was inside, and they're like, "Oh, what? I can spend what $10 a month and get access to like 100 games? Yeah, I'll do that." So I think that was caused that initial surge, but they have been relatively stagnant, or like even if it's going up, it's not like as high of a switchover, which has then caused the conversation of like, okay, so they're going to pivot from selling consoles to, I guess, maybe like just publishing games and doing this games as part of their subscription service, and then now they're questioning if those games that they're making will be on the service as well, which then like, what the fuck is Game Pass then? Like,
yeah, I mean, just even more contradiction of statements.
Yeah.
Like, and the entire philosophy is day one Game Pass. Like, that is something that you have told us for years. That is the goal. So,
and
yeah,
dude, I don't know if you saw this, but this is a random side note. They Xbox released this new controller. Did you see this? It's like orange and black.
I did see this,
and it was so just the coordination here is so bad, because like literally on Monday they released this new controller, and the controllers like, and like the first initial thing was like, feel the burn today, and then I guess everyone was feeling the burn, so they changed the catchphrase or the tagline for it to just something else. Like, I think it was still
I believe it was originally "Feel the Burn," like you said, and then the revised one was just announcing the new like fire controller.
Yeah,
like it was very basic, because somebody was probably getting torn to shreds in
and
Twitter replies.
This, I don't think it can be understated how the effect of this on developers, right? Like, you guys have to understand, especially if it hasn't sunk in yet. We've been talking about it for a good hour now almost, but like, these are developers that have put a lot of their lives, overtime, long work hours to make games, because that's something they really want to do. And then this is just a really this is a random example that I've pulled out, but like on my Twitter feed, in the ever growing list of things I see about this, someone named Jameer Blanco, I hope I've said that right. He's a character and creature artist at Blizzard Entertainment. He tweeted out 10 hours ago, "It's getting bad. I literally have dreams that my whole team, including myself, are getting let go, only to wake up to entire studios under my parent company getting dismantled. Somehow I'm still here." But like, that sucks. That's
Yeah, I actually want to expand on that point specifically, the developers, because I have two different like sides of it that are equally just like worrying. It's like, for the studios that made it through this round of layoffs.
Yeah.
This round, again, Schreier's claiming that more is coming. Yeah, like, if I'm not at a Call of Duty studio, Bethesda Game Studios, Mojang, or like id Software, like, how do you feel right now? Just like this stuff. That's just scary. If they're talking about these were closed for reprioritization.
Yeah.
It's like, if you put out like a game that gets an 8, like, I mean, clearly from the examples here, like, the review score doesn't matter. Like, literally whatever you put out, it could be the difference of, you get to keep working, or you get, kicked to the street. And then the other thing that I was thinking about is like, what kind of a message does this send to new hires or potential new people that want to come in? It's like, you see multiple rounds of layoffs and thousands of employees getting kicked. It's just like, do you want to work for Xbox?
And
I wouldn't.
By the way, just to clarify some of the points that I've made earlier, just because as we're kind of slowly wrapping some of the loose ends up, but so I was correct. There is actually as of May 7th, at 9:23, according to the screenshot, UTC, there was they were still working on the DLC for Redfall, and this news broke again May 7th. I think I may have said Monday accidentally at some point, but Tuesday is actually what it was. So May 7th, Tuesday, was when this all kind of came down. Oh my god.
Yeah. I have like one more point, Sri.
Go ahead. Yeah.
If you want to talk about this, because obviously we are fans of games and stuff like this, and I think the timing of this is really kind of interesting because we're 1 month out from Xbox's Summer Game Showcase.
Yeah.
Which is naturally a time where all eyes are on your company, and we kind of have the title of the podcast, and the sentiment online is some wavering trust in Xbox over this. And like I mentioned to you before we started recording this, and it's like we've said, we've had weekly layoffs like every week for like a year and a half now, but a lot of people are talking about this one and getting like justifiably upset about it. And it's like, how do you think that this is going to affect perception going into this showcase? Because I mean, for me personally, I know we were just talking about Game Pass and stuff. It's like, this has annoyed me to the point where like I am considering canceling my Game Pass subscription.
Yeah.
Because it's like I've been subscribed ever since 2021, and like I just kind of kept it around in rotation because I was like, I do get value out of this. There are different games coming here at all times, different Xbox games that I want to play and all this, but it's like, like this is getting to the point where it's like I don't feel like I should be rewarding this kind of this kind of action. So like maybe I will resubscribe when Indiana Jones comes out, but like maybe I won't let it roll into through every month going forward.
No,
and I'm certainly, real quick, sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I am going to be looking at this summer showcase pretty differently. Like normally I do get very excited, but it's like this is going to, I think it's also pretty suspect that this direct that we're getting is revolving around Call of Duty after hearing all this.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because I was actually going to ask you, like, it is different. I've also noticed that this, like I think I said earlier, is kind of like a fever pitch of like, of just the public distrust with Microsoft, and just kind of the big gaming conglomerates in general have just been so. And by the way, I see some people doing this shit where they're like, yeah, PlayStation's the place to be. Guys, like, you're not
Naturally.
like Hi-Fi Rush also came out on PlayStation, right? Like, we're not just talking about Xbox exclusives, guys. Like, these are studios that are making just good games, not good Xbox games, not good PlayStation games, just good games. And so that was the first thing I was going to ask you, though, was like, what do you think is different about this time around?
I think it's specifically, it's what we touched on. I think it's the
hypocrisy
contradictions.
Of everything? Oh, sure.
And
yeah,
like,
that works.
Just the entire, like, saying one thing and then doing actions that contradict that. Like we mentioned earlier, like saying Hi-Fi Rush was a success, yet like then in what world do you make the decision to cancel and like close the studio?
And look,
that doesn't make sense.
I'm not saying that I will say that I do think that canceling your Game Pass subscription is a good way to speak with your wallet, right? Just kind of it's the different way of, I guess, review bombing in a way. It's a little bit it's the more win-win option because you save money and then also it sends the message across, so you got a little bit of both. But that aside, aside from just like kind of that, I think, to kind of answer your question about like the general distrust maybe about Xbox and stuff, I don't think I'm necessarily like distrustful in terms of like I'm not just I know I'm not going to be like I'm throwing my Xbox out the window. Not saying you're doing that or anything, but I will say that I've given Xbox a lot of credit this generation for doing a lot of the right things. I think that the stuff that they've done to progress backwards compatibility, and the way that's integrated into the new consoles, where it's like just really kind of seamless almost, and the Play Anywhere initiative that they've been doing, stuff like that is still to be commended. But that being said, there's been for years now, we've been hearing this, these Xbox catchphrases of like, we're here for the players, or we're here for like, there's something about players that they have a catchphrase, but it's hard to hear that and be like, oh yeah, they're for the players, but like, okay, but what about the developers that are making the games that you're talking about? And so that's part of it. And so like I'm much more of maybe critical of them now than I might have ever been. And then
now
also
we're here for the Call of Duty players.
and also I can't well so first of all, yeah, the redacted the sequel, the after show is the Call of Duty this year. But which obviously is going to be a huge focus, because they clearly it's their moneymaker at this point. It's going to bring in numbers that Halo just I don't think Halo is ever going to pull in again. I hate to say it for the Halo fans out there, but I don't know if I was zoomed in this whole time. I realized I should look at that. I was like, this whole episode, dude, I was like, why am I so small and Nick is so big? Fuck. I was zoomed out this whole time. I apologize for the audio listeners, especially, who could hear that I was farther away. No, the for me, Jesus Christ, I'm spiraling at this point. I'm gonna, like I said, we're gonna watch this Xbox thing. We're gonna do it live, or have a video up for you guys to watch to see what we thought. But everything I say now, or everything they say now, everything I hear will have this in the back of my head,
Yeah.
Especially because it happened a month before the event. I don't see, I mean, unless there's something huge, I don't see a world where this isn't the topic that everyone's kind of still talking about when, when the showcase comes around. And I say that as someone like, God, I fucking hope there's nothing worse on the way. I mean, I hope that this is what they talk about, and not like some other studio that they are like, Microsoft closes this studio too, or like some other thing that kind of maybe overshadows this.
Yeah. Even. Prior to hopping on to record this here today, I've been watching people all over the internet talking about this, just because it's kind of, dominating the conversation right now.
That's nice. I've been totally away from it in terms of, I haven't seen people like the direct discourse, just because I had too much on my brain already.
I think part of it is because it is Bethesda kind of focused, and I am pretty entrenched in that community.
Yeah, definitely.
So like I was getting a lot of my usual people that I watch that do their videos, but I was actually watching Alana Pierce talking about it, and she's obviously a developer in the industry, and
writer on God of War.
Yeah, and she had mentioned, just like as like a small little thing during the conversation, that amongst like developer circles, they have like a slogan going around right now, which is keep alive until 25. And that's kind of like the mentality that's going on with like all of these like layoffs and stuff. And, like we mentioned with the Schreier article, like it isn't done. It's like, I don't know. Like,
yeah,
it's not fun. It's a shitty situation. I feel really bad for everybody at these companies that are now out of a job and that might not be able to rebound, because again, something that was also brought up to me, or like wasn't immediately obvious. I was listening to Lone Bolt Wanderer, who's a Bethesda YouTuber, mentioning how like all the other companies are laying off and don't have many job positions either, so it's like you can't go anywhere else like right now to even get a job. So
I can't say that this is the reason, and I apologize if by some miracle anyone involved is actually listening to this podcast. But last year, one of my favorite games was Shadow Gambit: The Cursed Crew, and that developer just was like, "Hey, yeah, that was like I think a month after the game was out or something like that. They're just like, hey, we're done like making games. Like it's just too much. That it's taken too much of a toll, or we just want to get back to our families, et cetera, et cetera." And they finished. I believe they did put out. They're finishing out like a DLC or something like that, or they may have already finished it and it's out. But that blows. I mean, I remember being genuinely sad about that because I had so much fun with that, and then to see them just be like just release a game that that I really liked and immediately turn off the lights, almost relatively immediately. I think that was kind of a weird wake up call for me, where I was like, this is something's going on in this industry, and I think that for me since then, it's been relentless of just every week. I mean, especially in 2024, like thousands, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that, thousands of game developers have lost their jobs this year. And I think I see some people kind of maybe avoiding the topic, and I can understand as well. I mean, we do our best to talk about like good stuff. I mean, like a lot of our, like when we're joking, pretty much every other episode is us making me mainly looking like a fool, and then Nick stoically agreeing with me. But like, but you cannot just hop on and be like, oh, everything's hunky dory when like the situation feels so dire. And I'm not being an alarmist. I'm not trying to be like, oh, this is the end of the days. The video games are over. Ding ding. Like that's not what this is. Mm-hmm. But man, guys, like there has to be something. We have to like, be vocal about it. Vote with your wallet, and just talk about it, because it's just fucked up. It's just fucked up. And man, it's like I don't think I can explain to people like how actually it's gonna sound fucked up, but it's like in my heart I feel like just heavy. Like I just feel like so sad. You know what I mean?
I'm the same way. It's affected my mood the last couple of days, and we're not even game developers.
No. And
that's the thing. Like,
yeah, we're just the middleman here. Like there's the gamer, there's the developer publisher, and we're the middleman that's like, connecting the two, if you will. But even then, that's probably giving us ourselves too much credit. But yeah, just if you're a gamer in this industry, this is your I mean, the more you talk about it, the more people will understand that there's something here that's wrong. And I'm going to iterate for the last time. I'm going to reiterate for the last time. Excuse me. Don't do anything stupid. Don't threaten anyone. But have healthy, open conversations. That's literally, by the way, that is the reason why we started Respawn Station. Like, there is probably a notebook somewhere in my parents' house or something where it says like Respawn Station. Like I wanted to start it, and it was like a place where you can talk about video games, and it's totally like a safe space where you're not being judged for one thing or another. Obviously, if you're sending death threats, absolutely I'm judging you. But like you can have these kind of open conversations. That's why we started this stuff. And it's cool to finally be here, 3-4 years later and being on a podcast to talk about it. But it just sucks that this is the topics that, right as we start this podcast, Nick, it's like every week we've had some layoff news. And for the longest time, there's been times where like I put it on the list on that we have to talk about. And I'm like, actually we don't need to talk about it for now, or something like, but this is just, yeah. This is all of that has been accumulating to this, and we've hit all the bells and whistles. So, do you have anything else to say about that one, Nick?
I will be really interested to see if we see Phil Spencer, Matt Booty, or Sarah Bond on camera during that summer showcase, or if it's just going to be a bunch of trailers and some text.
Yeah.
Because I would be extremely nervous about public reception in their shoes.
Yeah. Oh, well.
And I feel, again, if we didn't say it enough already, hearts go out to all the developers that are now looking for new work because your bosses sucked.
Yeah. Because, what? Hold on. This is the last. What was Bobby Kodak's? How much did he walk away with?
I don't even remember.
I'm going to look it up right now.
A frustratingly amount of money.
Here it is. All right. So how much did he make? Oh, dude. According to Forbes, Kotick will officially step down. By the way, this was published on December 20th, 2023. Bobby Kotick will officially step down on December 29th, according to The Verge, which reported in October that the CEO stood to receive more than $375 million in compensation following Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Let me repeat that for anyone in the back. $375 million. Understandably, that is not money that's, he's not just getting a check that says $375 million. It's, recurring, it's stocks, it's stuff that's going to, down the line going to be, emerge into a total of $375 million. But still, I don't fucking get it, Nick. I don't understand how you can be in a position where you're getting hundreds of millions of dollars and you're not taking pay cuts. You know what I mean? I don't understand how this is fucking happening. Who the fuck needs this work? Needs that much money?
I do want to, obviously we don't want to be talking for the next 3 hours about this, so we've got to transition here. But I do want to close it with a tweet from Dinga Bakaba, who is the creative director over at Arkane Lyon. Because he had a nice little thread when
I saw it. Yeah.
Out. And basically, he said, "Permission to be human. To any executive reading this, friendly reminder that video games are an entertainment/cultural industry, and your business as a corporation is to take care of your artists and entertainers and help them create value for you." I think that was, arguably the most level-headed response to something like this. And
but
it's
what
really is their
what a preface though, right? What a preface to say permission to be human. I mean,
right?
Yeah. Well, why don't we lighten up the mood a little bit with some letters from the inbox to wrap it up for tonight. In what might be one of the shortest episodes that we've done in a few episodes, I think, depending on how fast we go here. Maybe. We have 20 minutes, I think, to get that record. Either way, so let's go through what we've been getting. So, Apogee, publisher Apogee Entertainment, and developer Sky Devil Palm, that is the actual name of the developer. It is literally skydevpalm.com. They have they're working together for a game called Questmaster. It's a Zelda / Super Mario Maker inspired dungeon designing sandbox adventure game where essentially it's just you create fantastical dungeons with what they say is story-rich journeys and skill-testing obstacles. And, you can play through them. It's very much so Mario Maker. It looks cool. It has that... I think the reason why they mentioned those two specific inspirations is because it has a Zelda kind of a color palette and aesthetic, and especially kind of looks kind of like the older Zelda games. And then it has the Super Mario Maker level designing aspect as well. Looks cool. I thought this was a fun one to try out. And also, fun fact, the game has a 3-player multiplayer, so you can bring some 2 friends along with you on the journey. That game, Questmaster, again, launches into early access on Steam and GOG on May 29th. And the game will launch with English and German language options. So that was pretty cool. I thought that was a small little one to throw out. And also shout out to Sky Devil Palm, based out of Las Vegas. I have not seen a Las Vegas development team before, so shout out to them. And by the way, for anyone who's interested in that, there is a game demo that you can download now to go ahead and check it out for yourself.
Surprisingly, still kind of untapped ground from Nintendo. I mean, there's like a couple of these in the indie sphere, and like they dabbled with it like so minorly with Link's Awakening, but
I was seeing the two things come together in that press release, and I was like, yeah, this just feels like something that would feel right at home on like a Nintendo Switch. Next up, we have Spin Rhythm XD. This is a rhythm game, if you couldn't tell, and it debuts on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 on July 9th, and it drops new tracks and a VR update. So this action-packed intergalactic rhythm game with the juiciest beats in the universe, as according to them, again, I'm reading the emails, that's the inbox, debuts on PlayStation 4 and 5 for the first time, and drops 10 jazzy new DLC tracks from Chill Hop Music, and introduces VR functionality for PSVR 2 and Steam VR for free on July 9th, 2024. So check that out if you're a music rhythm fan. I haven't played a music rhythm game in a little bit, but actually, Nick, you have played a music rhythm game recently for Weecember.
Yeah, Guitar Hero, I almost said Rock Band. Guitar Hero Van Halen. I looked up images of this. This
looks cool.
Gives me Amplitude vibes.
I thought it looked pretty. I thought it looked pretty cool. I was into it.
Yeah, I'll have to look into this one.
And in case I didn't say... Oh, sorry. I didn't say this earlier. So, Spin Rhythm XD is currently available on Nintendo Switch, Mac, and PC. And it is from developer Super Spin Digital.
It's a good name.
Super Spin Digital. Yeah. All right. Next up. What do we got here? This one, a little bit more of... I apologize. Again, music played for a second. This one is called Dawn of Defiance. It is an open-world co-op survival game inspired by Greek mythology. It's coming out later this year in early access to Steam and Epic Game Store. It's just essentially a survival game. I thought that it looked fun. It's not like... You can definitely tell that it's an early access game. It has certain kind of like a little clunkiness, but I visually, I think it's got a good kind of foundation. And so I'm looking forward to maybe giving it a go. I think it. I don't know if you've got your eyes on this one, but it's from Triega Games. Oh my God, what the hell? It's Traega Entertainment. Actually, it's Triega Entertainment.
Triega, I think, is how I would read that one.
There you go. So go ahead and check out Dawn of Defiance. Very... Nick, give me a rating on the review. What are you thinking about that review? Or, sorry, not the review, name. On the name. Review the name is what I was trying to say.
Dawn of Defiance. I won't say it's bad. There are worse titles out there.
Okay.
We're starting to edge a little close to that territory that we are.
Yeah, that's why. Honestly, and sometimes there'll be like times we'll get emails, and if the game doesn't quite like if the name isn't good, I'm more likely to not include it. This one was like, I was like, it's fine. I think it's fine. It looks good enough where I can throw it in there, but not my favorite title. But this next one, I thought this next one had a great title. So it's a turn. I'm going to actually give you the description first. It's a turn-based combo RPG about stringing together flashy attacks. The description is, after becoming orphaned by a catastrophic explosion at the Mountain Research Center 15 years earlier, Signy and her loyal pup Mino set off to investigate suspicious tremors that may herald another disaster. Alternate between both heroes to execute real-time combos in turn-based combat. Come face-to-face with a vengeful mountain god to restore peace to a quaint mountainside town. And that game is called Designated Demigod. I thought that was a really good title. I like that one.
That's a good one. That's another 2Ds also.
Yeah. yes. But yeah, that one, like I said, is coming out to consoles and PC in 2025. So you got a little bit of a wait for this one, but it is being developed by AN Productions and published by Armor Games Studios. So keep an eye on that one. I'm sure we will too, and you'll probably hear about it more on the podcast as we keep going. But you can check out more about that on RespawnStation.com.
I think not to harp on the titles here, but I think this one works because how many games do you know that have designated in the title? That's
yeah.
I think versus Dawn. Like
yes, no, I agree. But I think I like the way it's like, designated driver and then a designated demigod. I think that like that the double D, they retained the double D there. So I think that kind of worked well in their favor. This next one, Nick, I'm curious to just see what you think of it. It's called Enter the Chronosphere. So I'll let you look it up first. So Enter the Chronosphere is a psychedelic turn-based bullet hell roguelike. That's quite a few buzzwords right off the bat. But
those are things that I like, though.
Yeah, they are things that you like, yeah. So they will have... so first of all, they're developed by Effort Star and published by Joystick Ventures. And as confusing as that sounds, there is gameplay of it. You can check it out on Steam, but also the game is part of Steam's Endless Replayability Fest, which goes from May 13th to May 20th, and there will be a limited time demo that you can actually check out there.
Nice.
So yeah, give it a go. But it looks cool. I thought visually, I like the color palette of this game mainly. That was what got me into it, but. Also interesting that they mentioned psychedelic turn-based bullet hell. I'm looking at the screenshots. I don't necessarily know if psychedelic is the word. Maybe
I was gonna say, like, the ones that I see here, like, it kind of reminds me of like a new interpretation of a Vectrex game. If you've ever seen Vectrex games.
Sure. I'm looking through the screenshots. I wouldn't classify that as as a psychedelic, but no, I could see what you're saying about the Vectrex. I don't think anyone has said that word in probably the last decade, Nick. So you might be getting a record there. And I'm not going to skip this one. By the way, if you guys want to know a fun fact, actually, let me say this one. Next up, Skybound Entertainment and Those Beyond as a developer name, launch the. Actually, I'm not going to say this. I'm not going to say this one. That one doesn't make the cut. Guess what? Guess what that was, Chet? Yeah, guess what that was, Chet. You guys won't guess. Okay, so here's a quick one. Soul Mask, a survival epic from... God damn it, these names. It's QOO Land. Quo Land? It's coming out June 18th, guys. It's a survival game, open world survival game that has been, ranked number 3 in February's Steam Next Fest with more over 180,000 players. So looks cool. It's again, like I said, June 18th. It's coming out to Steam Early Access. I hope I'm saying that right.
Every once in a while, survival games, they're really popular, obviously.
Yeah.
And I always, a game like something like Valheim will come along and I'm like, is this the last one that people are gonna really latch onto or not?
Yeah.
And then I keep getting proven wrong. So I guess people just still really love playing this genre. Even the one that we had reviewed a while back, Enshrouded. I know that either released or
is it early access?
Early access, and like people were talking super highly about that one too.
Yeah, that game. We included that. We don't do this often, and we probably should do more of them. But we did like a list for like Steam Next Fest demos that you should check out. And yeah, we put Enshrouded on there. And we were like, yeah, this is a small indie game. I don't think people should know about this. And then it came out, and everyone was like, this game fucking rocks. So good for them. I mean, I'm happy that game's doing well. Second to last one, Saber has a new game called Heading Out. It's a narrative driving adventure game that's inspired by like road movies of the 90s or whatever. So they quotes movies like Thelma and Louise and Vanishing Point as inspiration. But yeah, it's a narrative adventure with roguelike elements. It's called Heading Out. You can find out more information about it over on respawnstation.com, but it looks pretty cool. With especially kind of I'm a sucker for good art style. If like the art style is striking and catches my eye, then I'll probably at least give it a shout out. So there's that. And to anyone that might be wondering, let me give you a little heads up. Everything that I have just mentioned has been in the last 24 hours. That's the rate of the inbox. So I'm not going to go through all of them. There's a few more, but the last one I did want to touch on is actually one that I personally thought was pretty cool, because last year I reviewed a game called The Invincible. Have you seen this game, Nick?
I saw trailers for it and was really interested in it, and I read your review when you put that out. So I'm vaguely familiar.
You can read my review over on respawnstation.com. It's considered a walking simulator. It's very much so in the vein of like Firewatch, but I had a really good time with this game. It was just a well-made game, and this is actually nothing like the game's already out, but this is about some updates that have come to the game, which I thought would be. I don't think I've really ever highlighted updates before, so I thought it would be fun because it's a game I recommend at the very least. But so here's the list of improvements to The Invincible, which is based on a novel, by the way, a sci-fi novel, originally, for those of you who didn't know. So. The mysteries of Regis 3 have expanded with additional slides scattered across the planet. These are kind of like slides, or like they're like photos or stuff, like things you can pick up. Like they're like documents, essentially, kind of I'd equate it to, that you can pick up. Discover these hidden treasures to delve deeper into the rich lore and mysteries, bringing players closer to unraveling the planet's mind-boggling phenomenon. This is a crazy one. Experience the thrill of exploring Regis 3 from a new perspective. With this update, players can switch their camera from first person to third person when you're riding the rover. So this is one of those rare walking simulators where you can actually get into a vehicle and drive around. And now it was always in first person, which did always like. I'm of two minds. I think it grounds you in that kind of character and reality, but also I would have it's really restricting. So it's now you have the option to switch to third person when you're in the rover. There's also enhanced walking speeds, which why wasn't this around when I was playing the game? So following player feedback, the speed at which
every walking sim's dream.
Yeah, I know. So following player feedback, the speed at which Yasna traverses Regis 3 has been adjusted, while further enhancements are constrained by the expanded dialogue system and pacing considerations. Players will notice improvements to gameplay experience as Yasna moves a bit faster in certain areas. And the last one here is experimental. It's an experimental feature that has been added to widen the field of view in accessibility settings, which as a person who plays a lot of first-person games, I always love seeing the FOV sliders on console. So with all of that said, Nick, we have made almost one of probably in the last let's see, 1, 2, 3 of the last 3 episodes, or 4 episodes, I guess, including this one. This is the shortest. But that being said, we have made it over 2 hours. Do you have anything else to say about the state of games? Anything from the inbox? Another Crab's Treasure, if you want. It feels like so long ago that we talked about that.
Right. We may have been a little bit more heated in this episode compared to previous ones. Sure. At least I certainly was. Sometimes the topic, it
was very
necessitates that.
Yeah, go ahead.
And we all love games. That's why we do it. And
look,
companies, I think,
I'll tell you guys what, we're not doing this shit for the money, all right? We're certainly not
Yeah.
putting in these hours for the money. I'll tell you that. And I don't think a lot of developers are either, based on the general. I mean, from what I've spoken to with the developers. I mean, yeah, I agree. And I think this was definitely the most emotionally charged episode that we've done. But I think rightfully so. I think it was a conversation that needed to happen, and I'm glad we could have it, Nick. I think every episode our conversation somehow evolves to a direction I didn't expect. I usually come in with a little bit of homework done. I've talked about that before, but this episode I was just like, I have to come in just, my mind as blank as possible, just try to approach this, as calmly as I can, and that went out the window. So didn't do much for me.
And Xbox, I'm not gonna forgive you. Jason Schreier was saying, according to people familiar, that Hi-Fi Rush 2 was being in the process of being pitched. I'm going to hold that against you people until you hire that entire team back and make that a reality.
Yeah. That's crazy. I didn't know about that. Hi-Fi Rush 2, huh? Fuck.
Yep.
Fuck. All right. Well, on that sour note, let's... Thanks for watching.
I started that out pretty positively. And I had to get that zinger in there. So
think about that, guys. Think about how we might not ever get a Hi-Fi Rush 2. And while you're thinking about it, give the podcast a rating. Thank you to everybody who already did. We appreciate all the support. And also watch on YouTube. Our YouTube stuff does terrible. Like... I don't know how this stuff works, guys. Apparently, YouTube is gone. There's videos like for example. So one of the things we've been doing for anyone who's like, oh my God, it's a 2-hour episode, and I don't want to listen to all of that to hear like Nick talk about Rollerdrome or Phantom Fury. You don't have to. We have clips of that now. That stuff is clipped out individually as videos. But like our Phantom Fury review, right? Like that video has more likes than views on YouTube somehow. I don't understand the logistics of that. How is that possible? But anyway, I digress. Go support our other content. We have a lot of that going around. So with all of that said, clocking in at a nice 2 hours and 16 minutes. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching, as always. And until next time, people, have a good night, a good morning, and a damn good time.